Hi everyone. This is the last week before the term paper is due. This week I want you to focus on your term paper, but we still need to cover the capital budgeting concept. So it's going to be a relatively short video. So let's get started. So let's define what capital budgeting is. It's the process of finding the projects that your company should undertake. It's the quantitative analysis whether those projects are worthwhile or not, whether the projects are feasible or not. There are popular methods such as net present value, internal rate of return, and payback period. In the industry, net present value is the one that's used most often. It's rigorous and it gives you a more accurate result. It gives you the time value of money. Payback period, on the other hand, is also used, but it's more of a back of the envelope calculation. You are investing X many dollars and you are expecting, Y many dollars of return each year. How many years or how many months does it take to pay for the project to pay it back? It doesn't factor in the time value of money. That's why I said it's the back of the value, back of the envelope calculation, but it's still being used in this industry as a rule of thumb type of thing to get a sense of what's happening. Before we dive into the specific models, let's define cost of capital. In order to finance the project, you have two ways to do it. You can incur a debt. There you have a cost of capital, which is the interest rate you are paying on the debt, or you can finance it from the equity, which is the required rate of return on the equity itself. So typically the projects are funded by a combination of debt and equity. As a result, um, your cost of capital is going to be a weighted average of the cost of debt and cost of equity. So that's going to be your cost of capital. The net present value model takes into account three phases: the initial investment, the capital outlay, during the operation phase where you are going to make money, and during this investment, typically you are going to make money by selling the equipment that you are no longer going to use. Typically, you are going to make money, but in some cases, you may actually do some capital outlay to finish the project. But typically, this third part is typically, as I mentioned, a cash inflow. Let's take an example here. Let's assume I'm going to operate a taco truck. It costs $94,000 to buy, and I'm assuming that I'm going to make $30,000 for 5 years, and I'm going to sell the truck after 5 years. I'm assuming that it's going to be worth around $12,000. That's the salvage value. That's the disinvestment. And my cost of capital, I'm going to assume it's going to be 12%. And the question is, should I do this project or not? Now, the initial investment is in today's dollars, it's $94,000. Then what I need to do is I need to convert all these cash flows that are in future years into today's dollars so that I can add apples to apples. So year one is going to convert to $26,800 and so forth. I'm going to calculate the present value of the salvage value 5 years from now, and I'm going to add these up. So all these is going to be the sum of $108,100 plus the $6,800 of salvage value. That's cash inflow minus the cash outflow in today's dollars, 94,000. That's going to give me a positive $21,000. And what that tells me is this project is a positive cash flow. As a result, I should do the project. It's a feasible project. Whenever it's positive, whenever the net present value is positive, I need to do the project. Another example is cost savings. You can buy a Honda Civic or Toyota Prius. Honda Civic costs $18,000. Toyota Prius costs $24,000. But there is typically a better mileage on Toyota Prius. So 50 miles per gallon, 36 miles per gallon. And we are going to assume that the gas costs are going to stay relatively the same. It's going to be $3.5 per gallon. And I'm going to assume that on average the car is going to travel 10,000 miles per year. And my discount rate, the cost of capital, is 4%. And the question is, which one should I buy? Now, in order to do that, what I'm going to calculate is the net present value of gas for the Civic. That turns out to be $7.8 thousand, $7,885. I'm going to add that to the original cost of the car, and my total operating cost is going to be $26,255. On the Prius side, the present value of my gas consumption is going to be $5,677 plus the value of the car. That's going to give me $29,000. NPV for the Prius is more expensive. In this example, we need to buy the Civic. Obviously, this is a very simple example. We need to take into account how much repair cost it's going to cost between Civic versus Prius, whether these assumptions are valid, whether they change. We need to look at those, and we need to do sensitivity analysis around what if the gallon increases, etc. But this kind of gives you an idea of how net present value is used when you are comparing, let's say, two cars or two projects. The other metric that we are going to look at is the internal rate of return. So internal rate of return is the rate of return that the project is going to get you. In the previous example here, when you are operating a taco truck, there is going to be a return. You are going to invest $94,000 and you are going to get this much. And it's going to give you a rate of return, a quote-unquote interest rate that the project is carrying, and you are going to compare that to your benchmark, the 12%. If the project is carrying an internal rate of return that is greater than 12%, you should do it. The 12% tells you if you don't have any other option, you are going to earn 12%. That's kind of the discount rate. If the project is making you more than 12%, then you should do the project, and if not, you should not do the project. So that's kind of the basic idea of the internal rate of return. It's not widely used, I should say, because of some of the problems with the IRR. It cannot handle uneven, weird cash flows. It can have comparison problems. As an example, an IRR for $1,000 project may be higher than a $100,000 project, and if you have a capital of, let's say, $100,000, which you can afford, even though IRR at the $1,000 project is higher, the NPV of the $100,000 project, because of its sheer size, may be higher. As a result, you need to do the NPV, net present value. It also assumes reinvestment at the IRR, which is not typically the case. That's why it's not widely used, and I'm not going to spend too much time on it. Net present value is the one you should use if you want to do it rigorously. Payback period is, as I mentioned, a quick and dirty analysis of I'm going to make the initial investment and there's going to be an annual cash inflow. How much will it take for the investment to pay it back? In the taco truck example, I was getting $30,000 per year, $94,000 initial cash flow. It pays me in about 3 years and 7 weeks, like roughly 3 years. But I was going to operate it for 5 years, which means I will still make money. It will pay it at the end of 3 years, and then after that I will be making money. So those are the main ways to calculate a project's feasibility. All the figures in these models are obviously projections, are subject to risk. There is a risk that the discount rate may increase. As I mentioned, you need to do sensitivity analysis. With the gas example, there is a high chance that gas prices are going to go up. So you need to do that type of sensitivity analysis, and then you need to do scenario analysis to see if if the changes in your model are going to be, worst case, base case, and best case. In the taco truck example, what if my discount rate is higher, but what if I'm getting a lower return, not 30,000, but say $26,000 per year? That's going to be my worst case scenario. And in the best case scenario, what's going to happen if my discount rate is actually lower than expected, but I'm making more than $30,000? So that's going to be the best case scenario. And typically in the industry, all these three scenarios are done so that you can compare your base case against your worst case, and the best case you can see the upside and the downside as well. Lots of products have released with high hopes, but then crash and burn due to some failures in the assumptions, etc., or the market not adapting to it. There is an example here, so all I'm going to say is we have done the quantitative parts, which is running the numbers and everything, but there is also a qualitative part. Is the project going to be feasible? Is it going to stay for 5 years? Is the taco truck going to make the 5 years? Am I investing my time into it? Is that a wise investment? Those types of things are all the questions you need to ask. Here in the deck, I'm giving you an example where there was a kind of bad business decision that was made between the WWF and NBC. Please read through it. It tells you what went wrong. But the net idea here is the models are valuable tools, but they are effective as long as the information that goes into them. And some assumptions may be wrong, and that's when the models fail. So you need to be very careful about not only the model assumptions, but also about the qualitative thinking, not only the quantitative thinking, but the qualitative thinking that will go into this process as well. I hope the video helps you, and I'm wishing you the best of luck with your term paper. Thank you.